Hello, friends. You are in the Learn It section. We are doing the coaching impact. We are in part 2, create possibilities, and we're going to do slides 53 to 67. So you get your worksheet so that you have some place to capture your thoughts. I will share my screen, and here we go. So we're starting to help people shift now from get clear, which we had done the last time around. They did their review and their mission review, and now we're going to start shifting into doing create possibilities. A lot of this will be familiar to you, but I'll kind of highlight a few little changes that you might notice. So as we've already acknowledged and mentioned, the way participants are picking their challenges is slightly different in our virtual offering than it is in our live offering. So you're going to give a quick minute here, or depending on what you've already done, if you create a dedicated space in part 1, then maybe this is just a quick, hey, look at the options you had already written down and pick one. But either way, people need a challenge to work through so that they can really get a lot out of this create possibilities section. So you're going to give people a minute or two to do that. And after they do that, we're going to give that, sorry, there it is, the slide changed. We're going to give people an opportunity, very similar to the live experience, to sit into this idea, reinforce this message that getting clear is always job number 1. Before we go rushing to creating possibilities, it's really important to really do as much as you can to make sure that you're as clear as possible. So we're going to reintroduce with the card here, the idea that even when it's for your own challenge, you can self-coach, you can use those get clear questions for yourself. So that's what this exercise asks people to do. We've just asked them to pick a challenge here, and now we're going to run them through these questions to give them that much more opportunity to make sure that they are clear. Very similar to in the live experience. So after they've done that and they've had an opportunity, I'll keep reminding, there's always going to be an indication here of what worksheet and where they should be capturing their thoughts if there is a worksheet accompaniment. After they do that, and they have a little bit of time to do that, then we're going to say, great, now that you are clear on the challenge to work on, let's start thinking now about creating possibilities. So first idea, fail here, similar to live, right? So it's very similar, a little bit of content to help people understand why is it so important to make sure you're creating possibilities. Nothing new here. So now that you know why it's important to create possibilities, let's start getting into our first activity to do so. Similar to your live experience, you're going to start with decanting. You really want to make sure you support that person in wringing out as many create possibilities that they already might have, right? So there's some research here to kind of reference if it makes sense, if it connects back to the bigger organizational context. Perhaps the reason why you're doing the coaching impact is looking to have even more impact in your workplace about innovation. So you might want to connect back to that. So depending on what you're doing, there's a little bit of an opportunity there to connect back to the bigger picture. So like before, 2 parts to create possibilities, decant ideas that you already have, and then generate new ones. Nothing new here. Here's your decant ideas slide. You'll be familiar with it. This is the question that we ask ourselves. What ideas do I already have? Similar to in the live experience, there's these options. You can either see if somebody has, because you're going to do a little bit of a demo in real time, you can see if somebody has a skill or a niche mastery of something that you think that's kind of interesting. I don't know anything about that. Let me show people how I can help someone create possibilities, even if I don't know anything about that. Or there's this idea of a straightforward decanting, someone who's willing to just bring forward whatever challenge they have and in real time work with you to show how you can give space for somebody to decant. So very, very similar here. Nothing new. And then we say, now it's your turn to try. So we demo it virtually, and similarly to before, now we say it's your time to give this a shot. We're going to remind people that there's a worksheet accompaniment. The create possibilities questions will be there for them. We're going to let people know that they'll be in pairs this time around, and they'll be working with their partner to really decant as many possibilities as they might already have about the challenge that they're bringing to the table. You can see here, though it's not listed in the same way as it is in live we have a bit more time and it's given a little bit more personal space. But we do say it's still helpful here to start with the check-in question. It's still helpful when you get popped into that room to assume that person has shared a whole bunch of their challenge with you and you say, wow, a lot of stuff going on. It's, you know, would it be useful if we created some possibilities? We are assuming still that the person is saying yes, unless of course there's a safety net reason why it's not yes. And then we move on with our create possibilities questions. So I wanted to make sure we saw that it was here in the PL notes, even if it's not listed as a separate question. That's a little bit of a change. We remind people of the safety net, of course. We tell them who goes first. We give them all that good information, and then we initiate the breakout rooms. When they come back, there's an optional debrief here, time dependent. You can ask them what surprised them about that experience. If not, that's all right. There's going to be lots of other opportunities to debrief, as you've come to know in our programs anyways. You can say, move right into the transition question and move into the next round. Can you believe that by using these possibility questions, you're likely to double the number of ideas that you have, right? So we can just transition into the next point. So they have decanted. Now we're going to say, yeah, we promise you, you can probably double the amount of possibilities. Here are the questions that are going to help you get there. You can read them out loud, you know, let them know that they've already seen the first one. We just used it. You can help them kind of see some of the significance or the power of a few of them if you have time. Ask them what they notice. Okay, very similar. And then we get people into their second round. So nothing new here. Second round, set them up, bring them back. What do you notice? Your job as the facilitators to connect some of those dots, connect it back to the organizational context, connect it back to previous learning. You're doing your thing as a facilitator. Nothing new here. Then this next step is different. So in the live version, this is an actual activity, right? These next two things are, there's an actual activity associated with it because of the extra time. Here in our virtual, we're presenting these as tips. You can see I have two tips. I have 2 extra tips for you, right? And we let them know that these are called our possibility liberators. As you already know, we're not going to ask them to push even harder and to do this again, but we'll read this and let them know this is another way to get even more information. You can ask yourself, you can look at your list and say, okay, but what would be impossible? What would be improbable? What would be impractical? You can say it out loud. They'll start to think anyways, even if they don't have a formal exercise. So you say that out loud. Here's my tip number 2. And we're going to remind people, right, that that urge to give advice is there. That is okay. It's part of human nature. And we can remind people that, hey, one really cool way to wait and stay curious just a little longer is to wait until this point to say, huh, that makes me think of. Same content as that you're familiar with, but here's the little optional exercise. You can say, hey, when you were having your breakout room with your partner, did you start to have any ideas? And if you did, take a couple seconds to private chat them your answer to, this made me think of blah, 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 whatever that happens to be. All right. Then, of course, we say, wow, that's been a lot. Let's take a minute. Let's try to synthesize. We are always pushing our participants, guiding our participants, pushing them to get narrow, distill, really clarify what's been most important to them. So that's what we're going to do here. No different than in your live. Give them an opportunity. Let them share some off mute or in the chat. As always, we're going to signpost. Love it. Here's where we've been. Here's where we are now. Here's where we're going. And then we're going to take a little break. All right. So you'll let them know at that point how long the break is. 4 to 5 minutes, maybe, hopefully, maybe it's only 2. It depends on where you're at and how your timing has been, how talkative your group has been. Let them know what time to come back. And we will begin when we come back. I'm going to just show you that when we come back, we're going to do our next section, which will be Spark Action. So that was the Create Possibilities. A few subtle differences from your live experience, but many, many similarities. Make sure to capture any thoughts or ideas that you have on your reflection sheet. Stay curious, and I'll see you in our next video.